From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Thanks again to Spectrum for sponsoring this production. Welcome to Capital Chats. My name is Joshua Irvin with WisPolitics. Today, we talked with U.S. Representative Gwen Moore of Milwaukee. Moore was one of the congressional Democrats who traveled to Minnesota on Friday for a shadow hearing on the Trump administration's immigration crackdown in that state. We spoke about her takeaways from that hearing, congressional Democrats' efforts to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and the prospect of a similar immigration operation in Milwaukee. Thank you again, Representative, for taking the time to speak with me today. On Friday, you were one of several Democrats who traveled to Minnesota for a shadow hearing on Operation Metro Surge. I wanted to ask, what were your takeaways from that hearing and that visit to Minnesota?
Well, Josh, I'll have to say that I was just one of 28 members from Congress that showed up from all across the country. And I was really happy to see that I was joining a totally solid Minnesota and state community. I mean, we had the governor of the state show up, both senators from the state, Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, all the representatives from that area, Ms. Morrison, and of course Ilhan Omar sponsoring it, Betty McCollum from the community St. Paul, the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, both the mayor of Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Common Council president of Minneapolis. And I mean, we had Muslims and Iranian representatives, Hispanic leadership, and even the police department of Mendota Heights, the police department, all in solidarity. And so one takeaway that I had is that the community, the Twin Cities community, wants the place de-iced. As a matter of fact, a direct quote from Kelly McCarthy is that actually the presence of ICE is hindering their ability to do their law enforcement duties. It's actually hindering them rather than helping them.
Gotcha. I think I remember when you were in the hearing, you asked a question about of a police chief who told you that they're not really hearing communication from ICE, that it's a lot of they find out very often after the fact about ICE operations and only get to respond then. I wanted to ask you about that kind of exchange specifically.
Well, I wanted to try to determine what powers and authorities the local police have now that ICE has come in. They are not able to interfere with ICE operations, uh, and they're unable really to sort of hinder their own citizens because ICE is sort of in the way. I'm very, very, I also asked the police chief about whether or not these uh, extraordinary temporary authorities that have come into play under what I have come to call the Kavanaugh Doctrine. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, as you recall, signed a shadow docket saying that the probable cause standard was no longer, was temporarily paused for a sort of a new standard called reasonable suspicion, which has enabled ICE to to snatch open the doors of drivers who may look Somalian or look be brown or black, and of course what we're hearing is that off-duty police officers find themselves snatched up by ICE, having to then prove that they are in fact off-duty police officers. And so so I did ask the police chief whether or not these tactics that are now being used by ICE were going to kind of bleed into the practices of local law enforcement there in Minnesota and around the country. And I think her response to that was absolutely not that those are not police tactics that they would employ. In fact, we heard testimony at the hearing and even the night before, the frustration of the police department at all of the work, the sweat they had put into um, repairing community relations after the George Floyd murder, and how this was a huge setback in terms of that effort.
With that in mind, I know that you are among the Democrats who have called for Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to be impeached. There are, I hope I'm not repeating myself, 97 Democrats who've signed on to that effort. So far, zero Republicans. I wanted to ask where that impeachment effort was at, and if you think there's any hope of getting Republicans on board right now.
Well, as you know, Josh, politics is the art of the possible. And I'm always looking toward the possibility. We have heard Republicans say, to reporters off camera that they certainly have a red line. Greenland may be the red line. So we're waiting on Republicans to show us where, I'm sorry, a red line, show us where their red line is. Because so far it's been a through line toward doing whatever the president wants. And all of the Republicans that shoulda, woulda, coulda, oughta, might have said something are people who are retiring and are now speaking up after the fact, um, or they realize that they can't win another general election and are moving to run for other offices on the Republican side. This is what I've noted. Um,
So I think with your response there, it sounds like you're talking not just about the impeachment of Noam, but also, or the impeachment effort, but also kind of greater discontent with this administration and its policies, foreign and domestic.
Absolutely, Joshua. I didn't mean to veer off the topic, but it's all the same thing. Not wanting to disturb Donald Trump.
Sure.
Uh, and I think that Republicans are looking for that red line. I mean, we can't believe that they haven't felt it already. Some of them have crossed the line. For example, when they signed on to the um, to the to the resolution by the speaker to bring the ACA to the floor. Marjorie Taylor Greene certainly has seen the full impact of going against Donald Trump. And even Lauren Boebert is now trying to back away from the Epstein victims, saying, I've done all I can do, because she doesn't want to feel the weight of Donald Trump's rage. And so, yeah, we're wondering, hoping and praying that the dam will break. Certainly, Kristi Noem needs to be impeached. Perhaps that would be a proxy for the president being impeached, which we know we can't galvanize the support for that. But very, very clearly, she is running a rogue organization. To hear some of her lieutenants speak, they they perceive that they're following the law. They perceive that they're being transparent, uh, and it certainly certainly can't pass any Rorschach tests. I mean, people are seeing. I guess they're asking all of us to not believe our lying eyes as to what we see. Uh, and the fact that they won't allow any sort of participation in investigations by, state authorities, they won't cooperate Uh, they will share the evidence that they have gathered or not gathered, that they have categorically claimed that Ms. Good was a domestic terrorist, and that they have absolved the officer who shot her of any culpability or accountability. They're following none of the protocols, Josh, to which we're all accustomed. To put him on administrative leave, to do an investigation. We don't recognize what is happening, and um, uh, and so um, with regard to the central question here, when are Republicans going to get on board with following some sort of legal, uh, to set some legal and judicial boundaries? We're waiting on that day.
Continuing with that topic, I wanted to ask what you had heard about the possibility of a large-scale ICE operation coming to Wisconsin, and if that were to happen, how your constituents you would have them respond.
I think that we have long heard rumors that there might be an ICE operation in our area. Certainly, Milwaukee is wedged between Chicago and Minneapolis. We're not a sanctuary city, but we are a place where the police department and law enforcement is not committed toward working with ICE on whatever their mission is. I think there are trainings of volunteers and legal observers going on in Wisconsin right now. I think that our um, interfaith community is prepared to join in and speak up and to support legal, lawful, non-violent resistance. We are very, very relieved that there is a temporary restraining order against ICE using, um, uh, uh, attacking and weaponizing of peaceful protesters. So we're relying on that guidance in order to send our people out to sites. But I do think that Milwaukee is a place that I think we are proud um, of, uh, of, um, of our citizenry. Uh, we haven't had any major problem with our immigrant community. We have one of the oldest Hispanic, some of the oldest, for example, Hispanic civil rights organizations in the country have sprung up in Wisconsin, and we're relying on our partnerships and leadership and our sense of community to sort of get us through that. We certainly are not going to fall for any ICE tactics that would generate some sort of cause for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act, which we think is ultimately his goal. The president has tried time and time again to uh, to pit our community against each other with the Carl Rittenhouse sort of muse, and it has not worked. We're a state. Wisconsin is a state where the Underground Railroad. We were one of the first ones to challenge the fugitive slave law. We're someone who, our Hispanic community has been very, very integrated within our southeastern community, and we have Hispanics in every single census tract in the state, every single census tract. And so, in Milwaukee, we have the most diverse community in the state. I'm very proud of that, and I'm relying on our unity and our ability to stand together to get us through this.
All right.
Should
And then,
that
of
happen?
course. Uh, we are running out of time, but I wanted to ask you briefly about the 2026 midterms. What do you think the prospects are of the Democrats winning the House?
Well, I think the prospects of our winning the House are growing more positive each day. We have record resignations on the Republican side. And not only that, and not only do we have a historical wave going for us, but this administration, its cruelty, its ineptness has really paved the way for our doing well. We have seen some bellwether results. For example, in the gubernatorial race in Virginia, for example, just recently, with our colleague Spanberger winning. I mean, just by double digits, a state like Virginia. We I think we have real prospects of not only winning the House, but I think there's even a pathway to our winning the Senate. And I think that even though the Republicans inside the Beltway are reluctant and shy to defy the president, I think that we are seeing that the the MAGA movement sort of deteriorating, and too bad we have to wait all the way to November, but I think we're going to have a very real good result in November
And
with the check on this president.
and real quick, do you plan to endorse anyone in Wisconsin's gubernatorial race in the Democratic primary?
No, no, I do not. What I'm hoping and praying for is that we will move solidly behind our nominee and all work together, because we absolutely need a Democratic governor. I know most of the candidates. They're very fine people, and I would be very delighted to be represented by any one of them.
That was Representative Gwen Moore. Thank you again to Representative Moore, to Spectrum, and to you, the listener. I'm Joshua Irvin with WizPolitics.